If you're looking for a somewhat inexpensive entry into the flagship market, you've got two new options right now. You can go the Apple route and get an iPhone 17, or the Android way and pick the Google Pixel 10. Both are 6.3-inch phones that both start at $799 in the US. We compared them extensively, took tons of photos, played Fortnite and other games, and the results will be surprising for some for sure. You're gonna have a hard time telling this year's iPhone and Pixel apart from the front. Both have a 6.3-inch display, matte aluminum sides and a glass back. But the iPhone does feature a more fingerprint-resilient matte back compared to the Pixel 10's shiny glass. Both have a power button, volume rockers, and both feel super premium in the hand. The iPhone features an additional action button as well as a camera control button. Both are nice to have. Unlike this year's iPhone Pros, the base iPhone 17 still has last year's dual camera bump on the side of the back. The Pixel features the iconic camera bar, which also allows the phone to lie flat on any surface without wobbling. Besides that, there's not much to say about the design. Both are pretty phones. In the US, both only support eSIMs, but outside you do get SIM card slots. The iPhone uses a slow USB-C 2.0 port, while the Pixel 10 features a much faster USB-C 3.2 connector, which also supports video out. iPhones and Pixels are usually praised for their excellent cameras, so it's very interesting to see which company does it better this year. We start with photos from the main camera at max resolution, and sadly the Pixel 10 is stuck at 12 megapixels despite having a 50 megapixel main shooter. The iPhone takes photos with 48 megapixels, so it's no surprise that the iPhone 17 takes sharper and more detailed photos than the Pixel. It's the same story with the ultra-wide camera. Thanks to the higher resolution, the iPhone is able to capture more detail, but both phones actually do a surprisingly good job here. What the Pixel has and the iPhone doesn't is a 5x zoom telephoto camera. At 10.8 megapixel, it won't match flagship zooms, but it's better than nothing. And to nobody's surprise, telephoto photos of the Pixel are much better than the digital crop of the iPhone. There's a difference in how Apple and Google software handles color. The iPhone pictures tend to have a warmer tone as well as more saturation, while the Pixel sticks pretty close to reality. And if you really don't want any software touching your photos, the Pixel is able to capture in the RAW format, which isn't possible on the iPhone. Maybe RAW is something you need if you don't want your skin resembling sandpaper in front camera selfies with the Pixel 10. The 10.5 megapixel sensor doesn't just have a lower resolution than the iPhone's 24 megapixel square sensor. The software also over-sharpens textures and makes skin and clothing way too coarse. And that's not even mentioning the fact that the iPhone 17 has an almost magical selfie camera which lets you take portrait and landscape photos without rotating your phone. The viewing angles are wide, letting you fit a huge group in a single selfie, and it's a bit of a shame that you can't use the full sensor to get square front pictures. Video is always good on iPhones, and the 17 doesn't disappoint. Both phones are able to record in 4K with 60 FPS with the main camera. Sadly, Google has a persistent issue with videos. The stabilization is bad, which makes everything look kind of stuttery. The iPhone doesn't have this issue at all. Ultra-wide video is another easy win for the iPhone. The Pixel is unable to produce clear, artifact-free footage with this camera. The only time the Pixel 10 actually pulls ahead is when you're zoomed in past 5x, where the Pixel switches to the physical telephoto lens, while the iPhone just digitally crops. At that zoom level, the Pixel is much better. Overall, the iPhone tends to take clearer, higher resolution pictures and has an excellent front camera. But the Google does far better when zoomed in thanks to the extra telephoto camera. But the iPhone 17 completely dominates when taking video, so unless you need a telephoto camera, the iPhone is the better choice if the cameras are most important to you. Both the iPhone 17 and Pixel 10 have a 6.3-inch display despite the Pixel being a little bit taller and wider. That's thanks to the razor-thin bezels on the iPhone. This is the first time in years that the base model iPhone actually wins points for the display, because it's basically the same as on the Pros now. Both the iPhone and the Pixel have 120Hz refresh rate displays with 3000 nits of peak brightness. Both are going to be bright enough for outdoor use, but we did notice that the Pixel gets a lot brighter indoors with automatic brightness turned off. The iPhone has a slightly higher resolution while the Pixel is pretty much Full HD, but in reality both look very sharp. Not all 120Hz panels are the same. The iPhone's display can dynamically adjust from 1 Hz to 120, while the Pixel is stuck between 30, 60 or 120. That's thanks to the use of a more expensive LTPO OLED panel in the iPhone, which leads to better efficiency and improves battery life. Furthermore, Apple's Ceramic Shield 2 glass is more resistant to scratching, drops, and even has a better anti-reflective coating than the Pixel 10's Gorilla Glass Victus 2. It's a similar story with the speakers. Both phones have dual stereo speakers that sound excellent and get plenty loud, but the iPhone just sounds a bit fuller, bassier, and clearer, while high mids like female vocals can get a bit shouty on the Pixel. Apple and Google both ship phones with their self-designed chips. Google's Tensor G5 and the iPhone 17's A19 use the same 3nm manufacturing process, so you'd expect performance to be similar. The iPhone 17 comes with 8GB of RAM and a base 256GB of storage, and Google's Pixel packs 12GB of RAM with quite few 128GB of storage. Before we compare the processing power in detail, both the iPhone 17 and Pixel 10 are great and very smooth with pretty much everything you throw at it. Besides gaming and video editing, here you will see a big difference. In the Geekbench benchmark test, the iPhone is a massive 55% faster in single-core and 80% faster in multi-core. That means you'll be able to launch apps faster and run more programs at the same time on the iPhone. To test performance in gaming, we ran 3D Mark's Wildlife Extreme benchmark. The iPhone is again about 66% faster than the Pixel, and even more embarrassingly, the iPhone manages a 71 stability score in the 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme test, the stress test, compared to the Pixel's 63%. So not only is the iPhone faster for gaming, it also holds onto more of its performance without thermally throttling, meaning you can game for longer sessions without dropping frames. Apple's A19 is a monster, and the iPhone 17 might be the first base model iPhone that can fully utilize its chip in games thanks to the 120Hz refresh rate display. We were thrilled to find a 120 FPS option in Fortnite with medium settings, and even more impressed by the fact that the iPhone consistently provides a 120 FPS experience without throttling throughout an entire Fortnite round. The Pixel 10 is lagging far behind in this title. You're limited to 60 FPS regardless of quality settings, and the game runs at a stuttery 30 to 45 FPS at the medium preset. In League of Legends Wild Rift, both phones perform exactly the same. On the Pixel 10, you can actually select a 120 FPS option, but the game still stays stuck at 60 FPS no matter what setting you change. The iPhone also runs at 60, but you can select higher graphic settings and resolution. The overall experience is pretty much the same though. We recommend anyone serious about mobile gaming to forget about the Google Pixel 10. There are far better Android alternatives like the Poco F7, which is less than half the price, or the Galaxy S25 series with a more powerful Snapdragon 8 Elite chip. The iPhone 17 actually stands out as a gaming powerhouse though, and the value proposition is great considering the ridiculous performance of the A19 chip. On paper, the Google Pixel absolutely wins in raw battery capacity. The iPhone 17 packs a pitiful 3600 mAh cell, while the Pixel 10 has a more impressive 4900 mAh capacity. Our standardized YouTube HD video playback test tells a different story. The iPhone manages an incredible 30 hours of continuous playback at maximum brightness. The Pixel only gets 19 hours and 15 minutes. While the Pixel gets a bit brighter, that's still a massive difference and a huge efficiency advantage for the iPhone. Both support wireless charging and both have magnets built into the back, allowing you to attach wireless power banks or other magnetic accessories using Apple MagSafe or Google Pixel Snap, which are basically the same. Let's talk about biometrics real quick. Apple's Face ID is far superior to Google's facial recognition. It's faster and works with little to no light. But Google's Pixel 10 also rocks an ultrasonic under-display fingerprint scanner that's even faster. We'll have to give the win to Google here, since there are just more options for unlocking the phone, but if you're using Face Unlock only, then the iPhone will do a better job. Apple and Google both do a fantastic job on software support, and these devices should stay up to date for at least 7 years. Our only worry is that the Pixel 10's middling performance will mean that it ages worse than the iPhone. Both Apple and Google have introduced major visual overhauls this year. iOS 26 Liquid Glass brings fancy icons, animations, and transparency effects, as well as additional customization options. But sometimes the over-the-top effects make text elements completely unreadable or straining to the eye. We've also noticed a couple of bugs that are quite annoying. Android 16 feels super clean and fast in comparison. Google's Material 3 Expressive update brings dynamic haptics, physics-based animations, and a whole lot of color into the previously minimalistic stock Android experience. Let's talk about the AI features. Apple Intelligence and Siri are okay for setting a timer, making a calendar entry, or finding certain settings. But most of the time it will just bring you to a search result, and that's instead of answering your question directly. Google's Gemini integration in apps and its extra features feel a step ahead, like a big step ahead. That's not to mention the wealth of AI features you can find on the Pixel 10. You can edit photos with a simple prompt, live translate calls, which works really great, or send them to an AI assistant if you don't like answering the phone. Apple Intelligence pales in comparison. Something we really appreciate about both the Pixel and iPhone are the excellent emergency and safety features. Both have satellite reception for emergencies when you don't have a network connection, and both have other potentially life-saving features like car crash detection. Props to both Google and Apple for that. So, should you get the iPhone 17 or Pixel 10? Well, if you live in the US and can get both phones at $799, the iPhone 17 is the clear winner. It has faster performance, much longer battery life, a nicer display, and better speakers. It takes better videos and even has double the storage. If you live outside the US, chances are that the Pixel is much cheaper than the iPhone. And if you're not a gamer, the Pixel offers a fantastic value, and we love that it has a telephoto camera and can shoot in RAW. And its AI features are much better. But like you've seen, you do get a longer battery life, better gaming performance, and higher resolution photos with the main camera when you pick the iPhone 17. So you will get more if you spend more. Now, if you're an Android fan, I highly recommend you watch our comparison between the Google Pixel 10 Pro XL and the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. Two Android flagships, and the results are quite surprising.